Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Talk to Walk podcast. If you would like to view the video version of this episode, you can click the link in our description, as well as visit us on our website at secondstudentsclinton.com for more info. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you all for joining in on this week's episode of the Talk to Walk podcast, in which we talk about things that we hope help you walk in your life better. My name's Tyler Baker. I'm the host, and today I have one of our very own students. She's the very first student on our podcast, Miss Erin Cantrell.
Hello.
Erin, how are you, girl?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Good. How's life?
Life is good. Life is very fast right now. Everything kind of happening at once. Senior time.
Yeah, you're a big old senior.
No, almost at the end.
Yeah. How does it feel?
It feels weird knowing that like a phase of your life is over and now you're moving on. You're on your own now. Kind of going.
Yeah. So any plans for college? You staying local?
I am going to the University of Tennessee to become an English major and then hopefully go to law school afterwards.
Nice. That's so awesome. That's cool. So with this podcast, kind of our goal is every conversation we have at this table is to really help somebody walk their life better.
Yeah.
The whole idea of Talk to Walk is that we're talking about things that can help them walk better. So today we're going to be talking about sports, and not just sports in general, but how do you balance sports in life? So coming from a senior in high school, obviously life is crazy.
Very true.
There's so much going on. You have so many things coming at you, your future, your plans, and you're involved in things. So tell us really just a little bit about your sport career. I know you played volleyball.
Yes, I did.
So kind of give us a little bit of insight to that. How old were you when you started?
So I have been around volleyball since I was born. My dad has always been the coach at Anderson County. He started being the manager of the team while he was in high school. So he's been there since the beginning. So I've also been there since my beginning. So I started playing volleyball whenever I was 10, which is a year earlier than most people start playing. Most people start in 6th grade whenever we go, and I started in 5th grade in club volleyball, where I would travel around, do tournaments locally and far away, where you have to travel, stay the night, and do everything. And I stayed with it through high school to where, thankfully, I got to go to the state tournament for 4 years in a row. And we got runner-up my junior year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So growing up with a coach as a dad, I can imagine that was tough.
It was very different. A lot of people kind of thought it was going to be like on you all the time and everything. But we figured out a relationship where my dad would let other coaches kind of take the front with me and kind of decide my role on the team and what would happen to make sure that everything was done fairly and that we were both having the best experience possible.
Yeah, that's good. And a lot of times in today's world, that balance is not there because
not at all.
You're coached at practice and then your parents coach you at home, and it's like it never stops.
Those talks in the car.
Oh, yeah. I remember those. Actually, I grew up playing baseball, and my mom was like my coach. It was so funny because anytime I would mess up, she would be standing behind home plate yelling at me mid-game, and then I would get in the car and it would be the same spiel every time.
And over,
you did this, you did that. And I'm like, Mom, you're not my coach. But, with having a parent as an actual coach for you being around volleyball so much, what were some things that maybe you saw your dad develop into as more of a father figure to other people? Like, what were some positives with that? Yeah,
he definitely, especially with my group and the ages that were around me, like the few girls that were older than me, the few girls that were younger than me, he grew up knowing, not before volleyball, grew up knowing as my friends. So whenever we get to that stage where now he's being their coach and also he knows them on a personal level, it makes the relationship stronger with them, is what I came to see, is that he's had them over for sleepovers. Whenever I've had friends over for birthday parties, he's seen these people. So the trust was built on and off the court, which really helped us go farther, in my opinion. Yeah, that's cool. And with that, I imagine the relationships he's had throughout the years with teams, he still has. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We have former players that will come over and eat dinner. We'll go out. If a lot of people for weddings and stuff, I've been to a ton of weddings of former players that have wanted the past coaches, my dad and Rita Hackler and Jamie Smith and everybody that's around here to kind of go and just see the next phases of their life, which I'm very happy I've been a part of. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's go back to this whole my dad's a coach thing, because I know from a male perspective, it's way tougher sometimes for the dad to be the coach. Oh, yeah. But I also know from the female perspective that it causes some tension in the relationship with you and your father, because he's fussing at you and you're like, Dad, get off my back. And so for you, growing up around volleyball, when did you really start to get interested? Let's start there. When did your interest peak with volleyball? So I was running around as a kid around Anderson County. During practices, I was shagging volleyballs, picking them up, doing anything that I could to be around the sport. So in 6th grade, whenever tryouts hit, I was there. I was ready to go. It was what I wanted to do. I've been around it forever. I was like, I've got this. Like, this is what I was made to do, which is what a lot of people get stuck in their heads. It's like, my whole life is going to be this sport, and I'm going to be the best at it that I can. And that's the thought I had going into it.
Yeah. So you started in 6th grade. You progressed. Dad was coaching state tournament. I know they had a lot of runs.
Yeah.
Did they ever win the championship?
We have won one time in the 1999-2000 year.
Okay. I was 6 years old. That's awesome. That's so crazy to think back in time. So looking at the scope of your life, sports has pretty much been a part of it from the
Forever,
beginning.
yes.
And so let me shift gears here with that. How did that affect you in your personal life? Having sports around all the time.
It is really draining, and a lot more than what anybody on the outside would think. Like, you're there practicing 4 hours a day minimum now, and especially in like today's age, in the 2020s, the 2010s and 2020 especially, coaches have expected a lot more from players to where the bare minimum has rised. Like, it used to be practice 1 hour a day, maybe run a little bit, do some weights. Now it's you have to do all of those things, plus a 4-hour practice, plus work on your own, just to be the bare minimum of what you're doing. And we've seen, me and my dad both have had problems to where we're like, we have no personal life during volleyball season or during training or the off season while you're planning to do volleyball and stuff like that, where you have to catch yourself and make sure that you're progressing yourself in other aspects of your life other than the sport that you're dedicated to.
Yeah. And with that, the personal life part, that's so important, especially for a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're what, 17, 18?
17, yeah.
So, I mean, growing up in 6th grade, you're typically 11-ish, roughly, depending on how young or old you are.
Yeah.
And so having that formed at such a young age to be put in your mind that that's how it has to be, I can only imagine with everything the way it's trending now is it's gotten worse.
Oh, yeah.
So give us a little peek into that. So let's go to high school now. So you went out of middle school, which middle school sports are not really as intuitive.
Oh, but we were at the top, yeah.
Well, I'm sure you were. Yeah, I mean, you got to reach for excellence, but you get into high school, it's a whole different level.
Exactly.
Once you get out of the middle school, it's kind of like this mindset of the whole pee-wee stuff is gone.
No, it's time to go. Yeah.
And so how was that for you? How was that adjustment?
The biggest adjustment that I saw was I was playing club volleyball the entire time while I was doing actual volleyball. And in middle school, club volleyball was more, you go to the gym, you just do a little bit, and it was only for like 2 or 3 months. And to make it in high school sports, the mindset now is you have to do club. You have to be working all the time. So I started getting into club freshman year. And freshman year, I joined a club. It's like 40 minutes away. And I was there from November to July. I was there 3 days a week, 4-hour practices, tournaments, all across the country.
Wow.
And that's what my whole life was. I don't remember doing a single thing for the high school my freshman year that wasn't volleyball. And that's just kind of the mindset everywhere right now in any sport, really, in baseball, basketball, football. The mindset is you are supposed to be working all the time or else you're going to fall behind, when that's not really true, but that's what everybody kind of thinks right now.
So you literally traveled everywhere.
I got to go to Disney World to play a tournament in July one time, which was really fun, but I would have long weekends where I'd be in Chicago and then I got to come back for school, or I've missed a day of school because I was in Indiana just for volleyball.
That's crazy. And you look back and you think, now as a senior, you're almost done with high school.
Yeah.
Is there, in a way, some regret with that, maybe?
I've thought about that a lot, where I know that I was given the opportunity to go all these places and to see all these new things and meet these new people that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't do volleyball. But then I'm also missing out on the things at home, like spending time with my family, my brother, my friends, and especially just doing school stuff and being a kid, because I was expected to go out and do a job that was supposed to be a sport, but it just turned into more of, this is what you do now. This is your life.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of teen athletes right now at this point in culture, I mean, it's 2022, and the reality of sports is that it's beginning even younger in like coaches' pitch.
I've seen players that started at 8 years old.
Yeah.
And that's all that they've known.
Yeah. I mean, cheerleading and not that sports are bad.
Yeah.
I played sports my whole life. But what I think the stigma is now is that, like you said, if you don't put in the work on your own extra and then some, you're not meeting the bare minimum.
Exactly.
And so it's almost as if there's this cloud over top of you as an athlete, as a student athlete, as a teenager, that you're trying to figure out your social life, who you are, your identity, getting into school, finding friends, plus all the other things. So the whole idea of this conversation is the balancing part of that.
Yeah.
So for you, let's start here. What or how did all of that affect you in the seasons of maturing in your life?
So whenever I started playing all year round volleyball in freshman year, and that's about the time whenever you kind of start to figure out who you are as a person, because you get to try all these new things and meet these new people. And since that part of me was taken away, I was not very sociable, was the big thing I realized, because my job was to listen to what somebody was telling me, do what I was told, and work my hardest. But I wasn't getting to build relationships with these people because I was just here to work. I missed out going to church all the time. My freshman year, I don't know if there was a Sunday I was free where I came to church. And that was also on Wednesdays because I was practicing for about 4 or 5 hours. And you don't realize it in the moment until you're so far in and you're like, I haven't done anything but sports this entire year. Like, what else have I accomplished, or what else have I gotten better at in my personal life? And just your work ethic for school and stuff. I was getting home 10:30, 11 every night, and you have a test tomorrow. Like, something's going to fall behind if you're not being careful and balancing it all together.
Right. So for you, how did you balance it? Or did you? Or was it a struggle for you? Did it really take over, like you said, in your life that you were getting home 10:30, 11? I mean, obviously, the balancing part, you've got an 8-hour school day plus 6 hours of practice. I mean, you're 13, 14 hours just there.
The entire time that I wasn't playing volleyball, I was doing homework from the car ride there to the car ride back. And you had time for nothing else. And that's as a freshman, where your classes aren't the hardest things in the world yet. So, and whenever I'm still reading a book during water breaks at practice, just trying to get in a few vocab words that I'm doing during a break or anything, it takes over, and you don't think about anything else other than work, volleyball. That's it.
Would you say it became an idol?
Yes, definitely. You seem to look up to the people on who you want to be like. I said, like, just role models and everything in volleyball and in any sport, because like in basketball, Michael Jordan, everybody wants to be able to shoot like Michael Jordan, to be like LeBron James. It's the same for every sport. So you would want to model yourself after somebody better than you. And you're like, I want to strive to do this better. When in reality, sometimes your body just won't let you. Like sometimes, literally because of your height or because of your quickness, you're not going to be able to reach what you're looking for and what you're idolizing ahead of you. And that just makes you run this constant loop that you're never going to get out of if you don't realize the problem.
Yeah. And in this culture, in Gen Z, which is who you are, you're on the more tail end of it. But, you know, with Gen Z, even now, the younger kids, I'm seeing within the world of sports, it's become more of an issue with the parents than it has the kids.
A lot of parents see their kids as like a chance for them to get to play this sport through them again and live through your high school days again.
Yeah.
And that's a problem on the kid's mental state and everything. I was very lucky to have a coach that understood that and saw the balance between being a kid and being basically like a worker. This is what you're told to do and everything. And to make sure that it was your decision, that everything that you were doing was what you wanted to do and you weren't pressured into doing anything that didn't seem right.
Yeah. And I think the pressuring part is where the parents really come in, because, you know, I mean, there's families all around, even in our student ministry, that we don't see their students either in the fall or the spring because of sports. And not that that's a bad thing, but it's almost as if they're replacing something that is quality in their life with something that they think is better for them. Exactly. And I can't speak for parents. Obviously, I'm not trying to. But, you know, at the same time, when I'm trying to minister to their students and invest in their life spiritually, they're not here.
Exactly.
And they're at the baseball field, or they're at practice, or they got this, or they got this. And I'm just sitting here in the corner like, what do I do? And so I think it's become more of an issue now than it ever has been. And I think it's getting worse because you've got travel teams, club teams, and I want to talk about your club volleyball in a second. But, it's just kind of this thing that I was told growing up is that anytime you ever commit to anything, you finish it.
Yeah.
And I think that has been taken to the extreme that it doesn't matter what it comes in the place of, you finish it, even if it's just an extracurricular sport. And I think that it's become life. And so come back to club volleyball here. We've talked about it a lot, just in general. Whenever you were doing club, you were gone every weekend,
every weekend, yeah.
And through the week, it was practice. I remember you would miss church on Wednesdays. You're like, I want to come so bad. When did it finally become too much for you?
I remember it coming too much after my freshman year, because the freshman year was the first time I was exposed to this much work, like having to push my body to limits I hadn't pushed to before, because you're now in the competitive level of what you're doing. So my sophomore year of school volleyball, I realized what all of my hard work was leading to. It had paid off. I had gotten what I wanted out of it. So I was going through everything, and then it was time to do it again. And after sophomore season for school, it's time to go back to club. And I just started having memories. I was like, do I want to do this every day of the week for this entire year? And it's something that you don't know. You don't know what the right answer is. It can be either one. It just depends on the person and how much they're willing to handle and to take and stuff. And I chose to do it. I chose to go back to volleyball and do all of this. And the relationships and stuff that I'd built here during the school season, sophomore year, I'd started to get a little more vocal, starting to hang out with more people and everything. I noticed myself missing that more than I was enjoying the sport that I was doing. And COVID is really what kind of hit me into realizing, like, this is what you've been spending your whole time doing. Like, this is what you're missing out on, because no volleyball was happening. I was just at home. I could do whatever I wanted, basically. And I chose myself. I found myself choosing things that I hadn't had the opportunity to do before. And I realized that I had to find the balance that I hadn't had before.
So how did you find it?
Having all this time alone and stuff, I found myself reading my Bible all the time. That was something that I'd never really done before, kind of because I didn't think I had the time, and other times because I actually didn't have the time. But your brain was just moving so fast that when it finally calmed down, whenever my brain finally calmed down, I found myself reading my Bible and understanding that I have a path for me to go to. There's something out there for me to do, and it might not be volleyball. I have other things, other opportunities that I can take to figure out what I'm going to be for the rest of my life, what I'm going to do, and what I can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you just said right there is that there's other things you can do. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times, and even I'm going back in time as you're talking, I'm thinking back to when I played baseball. I mean, I played baseball we'd start practice in January and I would go to November every year. I loved it. But I also wasn't involved in church. I also wasn't really a social person in the sense of hanging out with friends. I hung out with my teammates. Yeah. That was it.
And that's the only people you know at the time.
Well, and they become family, and that's good in itself. But then it's this, I look back on my past and I see all these holes in my life of things that I missed because I had a game, or I had practice, or I had to go to hitting lessons. Yeah. And I think if we're not careful, even with the way things are progressing now in the travel world with travel sports, and they're becoming year round now, I think it's going to get to a place that you're going to start seeing a lot of people miserable.
Yeah. And college coaches at the top level are actually realizing this now, and they want people who are playing two sports. So they're getting a break from one thing. They're getting their mind to rest. And as it's getting worse, it's actually starting to get better. And I think we're going to go into a time where year-round sports are going to go away. I think slowly people are going to realize what it's doing to physically to the kids and mentally to the kids, to where it feels like we've hit a point where we've forgotten about that these are actual children that are playing these sports, and they're not adults yet. They haven't figured out what they're going to do, but this is all that they've been doing. And it's like, we need to remember that these are kids at the end of the day.
They're not professional athletes. And it's funny. I mean, you say that, and I see it all the time on Facebook of, my kid won this tournament, they did this, and I'm like, that's so great. But I'm in the back of my mind, I'm going, I have not seen that kid in weeks. Yeah. And I think, okay, where are they getting spiritual nourishment, but where are they building community at? I mean, the baseball team or softball team is great, basketball, whatever, but there's still such another element.
There's more.
So for you, now in the season you're a senior, Volleyball's done.
Volleyball's done.
How has that maybe left a void in your life? Has it been something that you really do miss because you love the sport, or has it kind of been a breath of fresh air to know that you don't have to worry about that anymore?
I found myself wanting to go back all the time. I've talked to my parents. I've been like, there is always going to be a part of me that misses the year-round sport and always having something to do. But I found myself getting the balance doing CrossFit, being able to help mentor middle schoolers and even elementary schoolers who are wanting to do sports and to make sure that they're doing it the right way. So I found myself with my longing for like wanting to go back and being active all the time, finding it and using it in other ways to make sure what happened to me and being miserable doing the sport that I was doing won't happen to other people.
Yeah, that's good. So really, I have two final thoughts I want to ask you. The first one is, obviously we're hoping that this episode reaches the teen athlete and they will, I'm sure, relate to you, because I know most of our students here relate to your story and the way it's been for you with sports. So what would you say as a senior now, looking back on your middle school and high school years, because you're about to be done and it's still weird to me that y'all graduating, but what would you say to that younger classman who is striving to be the best athlete and is just constantly grinding, constantly practicing, constantly doing all this, and is in turn missing out on all that? What would you say to them if you could go back and speak into their life?
So I would say to remember that this is what you want to do at the end of the day. This is not what your parents want. This is not what your coaches want from you. This is your decision at the end of the day on what you want to do. And I actually saw a quote yesterday that said, the jack of all trades will never be the best at one, but the jack of all trades will always be better than the one that is the best in one, because they are so well-rounded and doing a bunch of different things. Even if they're not the best at one certain thing, the jack was able to do all of these little things a little better. And that's something that we need to make sure kids don't miss out on, is being able to be a little part of everything around them.
Yeah. And I think too, even be able to be a kid and be able to have fun with it, because there comes a point where it becomes so competitive, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you don't win, everything around you crumbles. And I think the whole point of sports is to develop your relationships you develop physically, mentally, spiritually,
and also
emotionally.
To have fun at the end of the day.
And that's the thing. And I mean, goodness, I go back to coach's pitch. I didn't care about winning or losing. I was out there playing in the dirt. You know?
Having a great time.
Yeah. And so I would love to see sports get back to that, because the competitive nature, while I'm a very competitive person, I know you are, I've seen you on the court. At the same time, when the game's over, the game's over.
Game's done.
You're back to normal life.
We need to find that balance of leaving the game on the court or in the field and being able to step away from a sport and doing more around you that's not involved in your sport life.
Yeah. So final thought. What would be the one thing, this is the second thought that I had, this is the final one. What would be the one thing that you would say to parents today?
I would say to just make sure that you're not pushing so hard, because at the end of the day, the parent is never going to know the mental state that the kid is in half the time. You need to push your kid as much as you don't need to push them as much as you think you should. A kid will tell you if they want to work harder, if they want to actually do what we've put in front of them to do. We need to make sure that the kids are happy at the end of the day.
Because that's really what matters. I mean, even if you're paying a lot of money for the kid to play the sport,
if they're not enjoying it, what's the money there for?
Yeah, and think of all the opportunities you're missing as a family. And so, and that's, I agree with that. I mean, I say all the time, sports are great, extracurriculars are awesome, but it doesn't matter if your kid goes to the major leagues or not. It matters where their spiritual life is.
Exactly.
And so, I guess I have another final thought out loud. I'm sorry.
You're good.
With the spiritual component, because your story is unique. You literally quit a club volleyball team to come to church more, which says so much about who you are. And that says so much about what God has done in your life and revealed to you for you spiritually. What would you say to parents?
You have to remember that what Sundays are for. You have to remember what Wednesdays are for. And I wasn't exposed to youth programs in middle school and stuff. It was something very new to me my high school year. And I found something that I loved, and I loved going to do it. And if a parent is wanting their children to learn more about the word and to learn more about their faith, they need to make sure that the opportunities are set aside. And sometimes that means sacrificing other parts of their life. That won't be easy. It will never be easy. But to find that balance will be so worth it in the end. And a parent just needs to remember that this is what their kid is doing right now with sports, but this is their eternity that's going on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Yeah. And I've always heard and I've always believed, and it's been said by numerous pastors, that it doesn't matter the stat line or the records you break. While that's cool, at the end of the day, your child's still going to stand before the Lord.
Exactly.
You are going to stand before the Lord, and he doesn't care about how many trophies are in the case from your championships. He cares about where your soul's at and where your heart's at. And so I really hope, and my prayer has been, okay, God, break off the idols of sports, because it's become an idol. We can't deny that.
That's true.
And to break that idol, to then replace it with him and a brokenness for him. And I think when we all get to that space to understand that Jesus really is the most important part of our life outside of anything we do, he alone is who he is, and he's first, then everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
And I think for you developed in that. You said, I'm going to give up something I love. I'm giving up the sport that I've played since I was a little girl.
And it wasn't easy, and it won't be easy for any person out there that thinks that this transition is what, if it's meant to be, it will happen easily. But no, you're going to have to work harder for it.
And so with that, you giving up that sport, how did it change your life?
It made me feel more peace at the end of the day. It was something I was pushing so hard for, it mentally draining, and having that step back and being able to focus more on my faith and everything has just made like a weight kind of be lifted off of you at the end of the day, because you know that the only thing that matters is your relationship with God, not some trophy, not anything, like you said, that this is the most important thing in my life. And it took a long time to realize that, but I'm happy that I am where I am now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much for being the very first student on the podcast. You killed it. Thank you for having the conversation today. I hope and truly hope that hearing from a teenage girl may help you wherever you are in your season of life. Don't forget, wherever you're watching from, listening from, subscribe. Do us a favor, though, and rate the podcast and give us some
10.
stars.
Please give me a 10.
Yeah, you can
5
give
stars.
All because of Erin. But rate it, review it. That helps us just kind of get into the algorithm so people can be exposed to it and that we can reach other people. But we'll catch you guys next week for the next episode of Talk to Walk. Have a great week. See you guys.